Alright, we're not going to know. Alright, folks. I'm just going to hop into it. I got a busy day today, a lot of things to cover, and I wanted to hit this up. It sounded like fun. I put some things together, and we'll be chatting about comic covers. But, first off, howdy. I'm Cody with IronVerse Comics. By the title of the stream, hopefully you know we'll be chatting comic covers and some issue 4 updates. We'll be talking about issue 4 first. We'll get that out of the way. I'm going to drink my coffee, and hopefully this doggo will let this go. Um, we'll dive into issue 4. So, the goal for issue 4 is to have at least 4 pages done before launch. It looks like we are 100% on track to do that. In fact, we might be ahead of schedule, which is wonderful. I got the page 2 and 3 double page spread in yesterday, which I will actually go ahead and show you folks now. Yeah, I'm a mad lad like that. But they will be available on the campaign page at launch anyway, so this is just a little bit of an exclusive for folks who have stuck with us for a long time in our crowdfunding efforts and all our streaming efforts and everything else. Um, uh, in that, so patrons have already got this, by the way. Patrons are getting it basically as soon as I do. And again, that's the best way. I'll say it as often as I'm given the opportunity to. Patreon or any of the other subscription services that we are attached to, like Global Comics or even through PayPal. Um, that's the best way for us to be able to continue making the content that you folks love so much, and that I mean, it's my raison d'être, as they'd say. Um, but let's show you issue number 4 so far, the first 3 pages of issue number 4, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to do much spoilers in terms of what they're about, of course. Page 1 should be pretty self-explanatory if you are caught up on our work. If you're not, issues 1 through 3 are available on Global Comics, a wonderful digital comic service I totally recommend checking out. And you can also get them through Wicked Publishing, I believe for $3 a piece. Or again, Patreon for $1 a month. You get access to our entire digital library and basically everything we put out. You get access to. So, without further ado, let's go up over here and see if I can. Display capture is on, so this should work. Boop. Oh, nice! It even puts the little logo up there. It's perfect. Doesn't even cut off the page. Oh, that is swell. That is a nice little coincidence, Miss Alita. Look at that. Yeah. Oh. No. Well, I think it's amazing. You can yawn if you want. All right. So this is page 1, issue number 3, or issue number 4. Excuse me. At the end of issue number 3, and this is where my brain was and where the caffeine's leading me. The end of issue number 3, um, Jack got reintroduced to a very old friend that they had lost connection for a long time, and uh, the hook, right, was why? Why did this guy decide to come back into his life now? And he left him this, which was a map, a hollow map. And Jack started following it at the end of issue 3. Start of issue 3, he has crossed the border from New Deadwood, the remnants of humanity, the reservation of humanity that's upkept by a basically the galactic government. What is akin to a galactic government. Um, to keep humanity kind of alive, almost like a zoo, right? And he's crossed that border, and we reach Los Feminists. And at the end of issue 3, you get him driving up to it. Start of issue 2, he's checking to make sure he's where he wants to be. We get this great Akira homage, which was 100% Maxi Dallo's idea, and I think it was incredible. The scene I wrote called for him just to kind of walk towards his bike and comment on something. Well, that's what he's doing, except fucking Akira homage. Just I love our team. And then here's the biggie. Is the biggie? Oh, and you can't see it because of my me, right? And get out of the way, me. Let me see. Can I? I think I could do something about that. Like. I want to get it the biggest I can for you folks, while at the same time being able to be on screen, because you just know I have to be on screen. It's all ego, right? Here you go. the first of four encounters in issue number four. Issue number four is Dante's Inferno meets Siddhartha's first steps out of the palace. It's the best way I can say it. It's not really. I'm sure the story, the Buddhist story, has a title. It's like the four sights of the Buddha, but it's kind of hard to. Nobody. I've mentioned it many times, and nobody's clicked with it because it's a very, it's an Eastern religion, and it's not one of the biggest ones. Most people will know Dante's Inferno at least a little bit, and you'll see how it's going through layers of hell. So it works as Dante's Inferno, but it was structured completely off of the four sights of the Buddha, which was the first Siddhartha's awakening to the realities of humanity from being a posh, rich, demigod kind of boy, right? He's treated as a demigod because he's, the super, super, super wealthy son of a super wealthy and powerful family. And that's what this is. It's Jack's awakening back to the realities of existence instead of just wandering around and not quite enjoying, but kind of lost, right? This issue four, helps get him back on the path. And here we meet one of the first four sites. If you're familiar with that story, you will you'll know each of these icons as you meet them. Um, and I was so stoked how Maxi took this, right? I'm not going to spoil it. If you want to spoil that story yourself, please go look it up. It's a story with a lot of wisdom. It's a reason why it's one of the foundational tales, one of the foundational legends of Buddhism. There's a reason to check that out. I just threw a Dante Inferno kind of coat of paint along with our own IronVerse Comics unique weird Space West flavor, right? That's what we're doing here. But I was incredibly happy with this page. I showed it on Draw and Talk a couple days ago, just because I ended up on there and we were talking about traditional inking and a few different things to do with artists and the time put to a page. We were talking about that Eric Larson thing where he's like, well, just do worse work faster. Um, Anywho, they had commented he's got some Daniel Warren Johnson in his work, and no question here with Jack getting smashed in the face by a giant fist. I think there's no question it's got some DWJ there. But I think he's also got a little bit of Frank Miller and Mike Mignola right here in the horse, and I think that's some of the first real appearance of that. I've seen some Frank Miller in like issue one, with how he would uh, in the foreground he'd do black silhouettes of like crowds and stuff, and that felt kind of Frank Millery, a little bit 300y. Um, but I think he's now been able to combine that into this just amazing style. And when he dives into our world here in IronVerse Comics, it always comes out so much better than I imagined. So much better. And this double page spread, which is what you'll see after you turn the page in issue one, after you get that little hint at the beginning there, I think it's an incredible introduction. It's what he wanted to do. It wasn't originally written as a double page spread, but he thought it would work really well. I think he also dodged a bullet this go with this double page spread, which we had a hard time with, which is it's really easy to want to put something in the middle of a double page spread because that visually when you're working on one page that's two pages it looks nice, but when you put it in a bound book you have the seam going up right here. And I think besides the fact that I learned last campaign how to adjust these things with a printer, um, so that when it's bound you'll see it correctly. Nothing will be hidden by the binding, which was a big problem. Issue number two, we had a Jack centered among the four horsemen. Wonderful page. It's killer in digital. But physically, you have that binding in the middle, and it just split Jack's face in half. It split War's face in half. It split Death in half. It made things look awkward because a lot of the time the binding takes a little bit of the artwork and hides it. It pushes it in, right? So you have to adjust the artwork so that it's out a little bit from that binding and meets kind of where the binding is. It'll never be 100% perfect, but when I was working with API printing, and God bless, thank you so much, Joseph, for lending your experience before you past to our work. Wonderful experience. Um, that you'll be able to recover it, and it can look really good still. You'll never get rid of that binding metal. It's just a fact of the print, right? But you can actually make it work. I think here Maxi did adjust it to the right enough that it will be a lot easier to not miss. But you might miss some of this, a little bit of that, maybe. So at least I'm keenly aware how to do that and how to adjust it now. But there you go. That's the issue number 4 update for now. We've got one more page coming in, hopefully this week. He's been so fast and so wonderful about getting these done. Um, I was really worried there for a good chunk of time because other things did not line up last year when we were going to run this. And this go, it's feeling better and things are moving along smoothly. The one other thing I'll show you, which was again already revealed to Patreons and then it was revealed social media, is this wonderful pinup by Boogiebot Comics. Um, it's the second of 3 guest pinups that we're doing. The first one was that wonderful piece by Illustrator Monk, the sequel in the Jackie Irons series of pinups. Um, I love Boogiebot's line work. I always have something about how he shades. I just am all over, and his coloring is very unique and stands out. And I think this came out great. It's got that sepia western tone to it. It's got a grittiness to it, which I think our work almost always needs. It's got a playfulness to it, and even what he chose to do to some of the spots, right? I just really enjoy. I think it's a killer piece, and I'm so excited to get that out to you folks once we fund issue number 4. Um, and that's the issue 4 updates. I don't have too much else for you. Hopefully later today I'll be filming the campaign video, and then I've got a lot of time to edit. I'm gonna try and work our animation work into the editing just to make it pop a little bit more. I'm gonna try and concisely communicate what Jack Iron Steel Cowboy is, along with what we're trying to do with issue number 4. We've always tried with our work to make each issue self-contained enough that you could pick it up and enjoy the story while it also builds off of each other, which is trying to have your cake and eat it too. It's a little arrogant, but I wrote this too earlier. Issue number 4 is very arrogant. Again, I'm taking Dante's Inferno, and I'm taking the 4 sights of the Buddha and smushing them together and trying to make it more quote unquote, trying to have the resonance of those very ancient and very relevant tales easier to pick up on via our work. Um, so I'm very excited for issue number 4, but there's a lot of arrogance in this from our campaign goal that needs to happen to fund our wonderful talents to the story concepts, tropes I'm hitting and working with to so many different things. It's gonna be fun seeing if it works out. If it doesn't, at least I can look back and say, yeah, I can see maybe I should have scaled back. We are scaling back on the logistics part, however, right? So I think that's uh, the smartest thing about it, and will allow the creative arrogance to actually work. So we'll see. We'll see. I haven't been this invigorated for a very long time, and seeing Max's work come in, see our wonderful guest pinups work come in, and being able to work on comics again has given me a fire I haven't had for well over a year, and I'm so blessed even for that. It's going to be fun trying to see what everybody can do. Right, we've been working hard. I believe I've shown the animation that Mrs. H did on here, but maybe not. I guess that'll be the last one. That'll be the last thing I preview. So, uno momento, por favor. I'm just going to find that and just make sure I don't get in the way of nobody. Let me see. Get in the way, I say. That I don't. This will work. We'll just show it off of here. Wonderful piece of work. I've been there. I usually find team members, so let me go ahead and unstandby this before I say that. I usually find our wonderful creative team members when I need to. There's things I always want to do that I've wanted to do since the beginning. And I just, I'll even put out calls for them and try and see what the universe will throw me, right? and it usually throws me the right people at the right time, and I've been blessed for that. Mrs. H is one of them. She's done incredible work for us trying to get breathing even more life into IronVerse Comics to hopefully attract more eyes. That was always my idea with these animations, these GIFs, and sometimes again short loops, right? This one does have music on it, but I don't know if I have desktop audio on. I do not. Let me pause this sucker, restart it so that we'll start at the beginning. It's a 5-second loop, so you're not going to get like the whole bit, but it adds even more thematics, right? It breathes life into it. It allows it to do the work that it needs to do and hopefully attract more eyes. It implies what it's supposed to imply. I've gotten comments about what it's trying to lead into. The image perfectly communicates it. I'm so happy about that. The first character that we meet of the 4 sites of famine, which is what the issue's subtitle is, um, hopefully communicates this idea first. I'm leaning heavily into the first um, site, I'm going to call it, the first site of famine to leave the other 3 as spoiler free. Um, Again, if you know the tale of the 4 sides of the Buddha, you'll know exactly what notes I'm going to be hitting, but I don't think you'll see the twists on them. Because this isn't Siddhartha experiencing this. This is Jack Irons experiencing it, and it's a little different. Siddhartha was the opposite of a worldly man. He was kept from the world, and that was the whole point of the 4 sites of the Buddha. With Jack, someone I respect once said he's a man who's very much not of this world, which works, right? There's that overlap between those 2 characters, but the difference is he's a man of not of this world who's been part of this world for a very very long time. He's not a young man. He's not even an old man. He's an ancient soul, and so that contrast is going to be fun to show you folks. Whereas Siddhartha was horrified that these things exist, Jack knows they exist. He's seen them again and again. This is nothing new to Jack. Whereas, again, Siddhartha, it was very much new. The 4 sites, I mean, the guy didn't know things died. The guy didn't know things get sick. The guy didn't know things get old. Um, yeah. Jack's not in that same position. But anywho, the first site is going to be fun to show you folks. The last page introduces the first of those 4 encounters. I'm excited to share page 4 once it comes in. Again, hopefully this week, but we'll see. Maxie got ahead of what I was expecting. I was expecting to have the 4 by like early February and launching mid to late February, so we'll see how things work. I'm still playing a lot by ear. But expect this. We've got one more animation hopefully coming in this month from her. That's actually a crossover animation that I'm going to give as a gift to one of the most wonderful folks I've encountered in indie comics, and has been a consistent inspiration and has kept my feet on the ground many times. So it's long overdue that I do a little bit more for that. It won't probably do much for the marketing of this work, but it's energy that needs to be reciprocated. Um, Anywho, that's it. That's it for the updates part of this. Hopefully I didn't bore you guys like crazy on it. Hopefully the audio worked fine, all that good stuff. As always, you can keep up with our most current stuff for free, either just going on to Patreon and following us. Put out like 90% of our content is free even. And then at the dollar level, you get access to everything. Um, at the higher tiers, you get rewarded with like exclusive stickers and kind of cool stuff. I haven't worked out too much of that because we don't have many folks at those higher levels yet. Um, I was giving discounts through Patreon for a long time from our Shopify store, and I had found out that Shopify's metrics and one of their print-on-demand companies that you can work through, they did not communicate pricings right. So I got screwed pretty good on a couple purchases. So I've had to take the discount options off for now. I'll probably be doing another discount to these restructured pricing points once those two companies kind of figure out how to communicate again properly, because that was out of nowhere, and it wasn't like a massive hit, but it was something I didn't want to do. Somebody's giving me $45 to buy a bunch of good stuff, and I had to pay 60 to get it out. So that was my mistake and their mistake. It's me not watching things move properly and not getting enough sales to see how things are going. But it was one of those lumps that I got to learn, right? It wasn't so big of a hit that it crushed me. I get to learn it and adapt. And that discount, removing the discounts, was my compensation until I can figure that out, until those things line up better. Besides that, patrons will get credited in the books starting issue 4. They're already credited on our YouTube channel where you are right now. At the end credits, when you're signed up for 2 months, so $2, right, for 2 months, then you get added to the list of supporters. We've had a lot of people sign up, grab our digital copies, and then vamoose. And I don't really want to put those folks on the list of consistent supporters because they're not consistent supporters. They are wonderfully appreciated. They are readers, which is incredible, and I hope that our work does what they wanted for the price point. But you're not a Patreon supporter if you do that. You're giving us $1 for some digitals, and I'm happy for that. But it's a lot of extra work for me to actually edit and put the names on the thing, and then put that in the videos, update everything, right? And if you just leave the next month, then you're either still on there and not supporting, or whatever, right? So we're adding things to hopefully allow folks to get more bang for their dollar a month. But okay, that's it. That's issue number 4. I'm sure I've gabbed on more than enough about that. You can sign up. I think it's this one. It's this one. No, it's this one. Sign up here. I'll go ahead, throw that into chat. I actually have to turn on my chat bot too. I did not. Let me go ahead and do that. So you can sign up here if you haven't already. Likely, if you are watching this now, you're signed up. But if you don't put in the work, you never know. You got to put out the energy there. Yeah, the flash was me turning on the stream, my little chat robot moderator, just to get ahead of things. But yeah, check that on out. Yeah, you'll see it. It's waking up. It's waking up. Um, Go here. Do, 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 do. Okay, cool. All right. Another thing I might have to. I have a busy day today. Um, bum, 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 bum. So that's there. Check it out. Sign on up. Link in chat. Give me your thoughts and comments. One of these streams before I launch, we will go through this, which is the campaign page. Indiegogo does not allow GIFs, so I might actually throw a video or two in there just for the hell of it. This is our sticker, one of the 2 pinups. I tried to keep it concise. We lowered the perks a little bit, but we're adding more add-ons in terms of if you want to spend a little bit more to get a full-size poster instead of just the 11 by 17, right? That kind of stuff. So we'll have a stream talking about that once we're getting there. But yeah, if you haven't signed up, please do. Now let's move on to the meat and potatoes of this thing. The reason why I'm doing this stream in the first place, which I love it, updating you folks on our work. I love our work, but the point was something else entirely. So let me go ahead and go over to the suggestion, which also by the wonderful Mrs. H, by the way. It's a great idea, and I'm stoked to actually talk about it. So let me go ahead and throw it what it is, and we'll hit the points as I can. It would have been better if I had actually, taken time to structure this. But what I tried to do is structure it a little bit. I tried to structure it by what I chose over here, which this little guy is hiding, aren't you? Aren't you, Chubs? All right, let me go ahead and we'll go back to this one real quick. No, this one real quick. So, peeps of the YouTube channel, which you're here, I'm here, that's what we got. Would you kindly make a video in which you go over cover design, wraparounds versus font, versus front only, virgin covers, what makes a cover good, going for new fans or new readers, variant covers, guest artists, some of our favorites. So I tried to get a little bit of everything. I actually could not find, I didn't look as hard as I could. In fact, there's one cover I actually should bring over here that we'll talk about for trade paperbacks, which is interesting, I think, and I want to talk about that. Forgot to bring it over here, but it's just behind me. Uh, uh, so let's just get started. Let's just hop into that. So I'm gonna do the full screen cam. Sadly, my style here, right, all of this stuff that's around me, the TV box, it's smaller, right, and it even warps things to the side, so it looks like I'm going all the way back when I go to the edges here. But I think if I get up, move to the camera, that'll do. What I'd like to do one of these days is have another camera wired like right here or something, like when I did my painting videos, just so I can do that and then switch to that camera and you can see it closer. But for now, I'm just hold it up. So we're going to start where I started, and not quote started. I'm sure it's not the first thing I started on. I would say most comic readers started on illustrated children's books, which is sequential art. Most people don't really think about illustrated children's books as sequential art, but I absolutely do because they are. Most of the time it's a full page illustration with a couple things, right? Or that full page illustration maybe has movement implied in it. Doesn't matter. It's one big panel. It just takes up the whole page instead. It's a comic book in my opinion. It's a piece of sequential art. So Green Eggs and Ham, Cat in the Hat, all that kind of stuff. That's where I would have started, right? And I could talk about those covers, which are usually simple. They want to show an iconic character design. They want a fun logo, and they want maybe a bright color, something that's fun that kids can latch onto and click in their brain, right? Um, that's not where we're starting, but that's where I started. And bringing that up, you'll see. You know what? Here, let me show you. I got this in error, and you know what? Might as well. This is a children's book. I got this by accident, but it has everything I'm talking about. Got this by accident. I ordered a Trigun manga, I feel, and I got this instead through Amazon. Or yeah, I think it was Amazon. Haven't read it, of course. Um, no idea how it is, but I do know it is mostly illustrated storytelling, right? It's mostly a storybook. It's not much of a comic book as much, but there is sequential artistry in it. It just focuses more on the prose than the illustrations. But the idea I was just talking about was the same. Uh, One bright color, an iconic character design, and a clear logo, something simple and memorable. So you go from something like this, right, and Cat in the Hat, that kind of stuff. So as I grew up, I loved reading. I was so proud of myself when I was little and I could read. There's a memory I have lodged in my brain when I got sick at school and I was very little and I had just learned how to read. And I just took pride. I was feeling so sick, but I was sitting in the nurse's office, I believe is what it was, waiting to come get picked up or something. I was very sick, and I was just reading all the posters and the stuff on the walls, and I was just so proud of myself I could. Um, That'll always stick with me, and that's kind of my oldest memory of loving reading. It allowed me to escape from how bad I was feeling, quite literally physically, right? Um, so going from the children's book kind of bit and just that kind of usual innocence, and a lot of the time they try to go timeless, which is great. To this. This was the comic that hooked me. I was uh, 15, so this is a good chunk later in my life. So I had experienced a bunch more, my generation. We were raised on Saturday morning cartoons, so that's where a lot of my media influences came in. A lot of my loves. Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, the Justice League animated series, all those things. Transformers was a huge one. All of those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh man, I can keep going. But all of those things left an idea of these kind of characters, right? They're not, most of them aren't direct manga or comic adaptations as much as they are their own thing using the IP. But it still was an introduction to the IPs. So I was always kind of semi-aware of comics, and I was always aware that there's more to these characters. But comics were a nerd thing when I was a kid. They were 100% nerd thing. I've always been a nerd. I don't know why I had that connotation to it, but then I had friends who kind of were showing me like things like the Punisher, and I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. What he just goes around killing bad guys in a Marvel comic book. Interesting. And then I get introduced to that IP a bit more, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's edgy, but I still wasn't into the comics. And then some point I got really into biker culture because my dad was that he was a kind of the easy rider kind of biker, so a hippie biker. And as I grew up, I respected the guy, and there's a lot of edges, and you wanna understand where you came from. Um, so I had that resonance built within, and then I started looking for stuff like that, and comics had this wide variety of stuff, and I came across the idea of Ghostwriter, and I saw probably one of the original older Johnny Blaze looking covers, right? And I was like, that's kind of a neat character design. It's a biker guy, that's fine. Um, but it's not really. It doesn't look that cool. It doesn't look that the design, the idea is great, but it's not something I really want to read. That's the original kind of Ghostwriter run, right? But I looked deeper, and I am so glad I did because it started my lifelong love with comic books when I found this cover. It was the coolest freaking thing I had ever seen. I had never seen art like that, and I had never seen mainstream art like that. Now, of course, there was stuff like that forever, right? It's just my young, ignorant brain. This was the spark. And something about Clayton Crane's art was just insane to me. It's when digital he started. He never really took off. I don't know if that's why. I don't know why he didn't take off because his art's incredible. I guess is the best way to say it. And he was the first digital artist I ever linked, connected with. I think he started. He was one of the original digital artists, just going in and pushing the boundaries for comics. Now, I could be wrong, 100% could be wrong, but during that time frame, I didn't see many others who did it like Clayton Crane, and I still don't see many people who do it like Clayton Crane. If I ever got a chance to work with him, that would be one of the bucket list like things. But she showed me this. This again, I'll show you this cover. I freaking adore it. It's Ghostwriter. Road to Damnation is the arc. It was a short 6-issue run by Garth Ennis and Clayton Crane. I didn't know Garth Ennis yet. This was my introduction to Garth Ennis. It was a great fucking introduction to Garth Ennis too for me. But I just saw the cover. I saw the artwork that was being done, and we're talking about covers. This is what blew my mind as a young man looking through all this stuff. I thought from my perspective, most superhero stuff was campy. I wasn't aware of Vertigo. I wasn't aware of. I certainly wasn't aware of stuff like Verotic. Even Image felt campy to me. This is this '90s edgelord kind of folks. Everything felt campy. This felt cool. This was my ideal of cool. This is where I got that biker vibe. This demon from hell writing out. The design was incredible. Bright colors on black. You can tell Ghost Rider there. The chains, flaming motorcycle. It's a nice bike too. They didn't cop out on the bike design. The dynamic angle, the skull just screaming with even fire behind it. The leather, the chains, the metal, the mace, which you never saw Ghost Rider with a mace until this run. Which the crowbar, the bludgeon is a biker kind of icon, and they gave him this big ball on a stick. Um, so much. One of these days, I would love to do a in-depth edited video on Ghost Rider Road to Damnation and why it actually started my lifelong love of comics. But we're talking covers, and it was this cover. It's the dynamic pose. It's the lighting. It's the uh, you. It's my where I was when I found this. I've never seen anything like it. Um, it just blew me away and started. It was painterly, right? It was almost Renaissance feeling, but with subject matters that again I wasn't aware of. Of course, there was plenty of Renaissance artwork that was much edgier than this. This is cornball compared to a lot of that. But again, it's not only the artwork, but it's when it finds you. And that's the bit that you can never really quantify. You never know when a cover's going to find somebody at the right time. This is one of those. The logo was simple, iconic. They just changed the O to a skull on fire, right? They kept that throughout all of it. Simple logo, simple. They underlined writer for whatever reason. As you can see, let me get a little closer there. There you go. Um, Marvel Knight series, the imprint there, so it wasn't just Marvel, right? Limited series. We're gonna try it, right? Um, Once I actually read it, I was hooked on comics for life. Garth Ennis became my biggest creative inspiration and will remain that probably forever, from his humor to his the subjects he chooses to tackle, both in comics that are meant for maybe teenagers like this to the adult work. Fury, My War Gone is an incredible social commentary on the nature of war and espionage that I don't think I've ever read anything matched. There's some incredible work he's put out. Please check out his work. He's got a diverse range. It's always going to have a dark satirical edge because that's just what he does. But like even this has a dark satirical edge. It's a comment on the nature of good and evil and how they often are both evil, and relatively interchangeable. But on cover wise, it was the dynamic pose. He's rushing towards you. He's going to smash something. The lightning, the fire, the edgelord. It just smashed into my young teenage brain with everything I wanted. That's the kind of cover that I think if it finds you at the right time, it's going to stick with you because that's what it did for me. So that's kind of commented a little bit on what makes a cover good, appealing for new fans or readers. My hope is people who had been reading Ghostwriter would see this cover and say, "Wow, that is a really cool expression of Ghostwriter. I gotta check that out." Um, I don't know if it was beloved by Ghostwriter fans. Ghostwriter fans are kind of all over the place. Some are huge Danny Ketch fans, some are huge Johnny Blaze fans, some are this is pre Robbie Reyes, but some people are just all in Robbie Reyes and think the other two are no good. Um, this is after Blaze became Blaze, and then there was Danny Ketch who was Ghostwriter. Um, this was bringing Johnny back into the saddle, having him in hell. Again, we're not talking about Ghostwriter, but that cover, it hit me like crazy, and my hope is it would appeal to older fans with the redesign being as fucking cool as it is, and would appeal to new fans like me at that time because again the cover is just dynamic, it's cool, it has everything you would want from a Ghostwriter cover in my opinion. Um, So yeah, a simple logo. It's iconic. It's not overdone. It's just metal, right? Embossed metal is all it is. Very simple. Probably could have been better, but it doesn't get in the way of the art, and I think that's what they were going for. And incredible. So I think that hit both bases of appealing to new fans and old fans. Now I could be wrong. I could very well be wrong because I technically was not an old fan at that point. So I can only speak to half of it. It appealed to me as a new fan. Um, So, uh, it's a front over only cover. We're not going to talk. Again, I couldn't find any wraparound covers, and there's something I got to say about that when we get there. But let's talk about another interesting cover, and we're going to talk about a couple things with this series in particular. I didn't pull examples of everything that this series does with its covers, but it's going to be a lot of fun talking about them because there's quite a few ideas within them that I think are just freaking cool. Um, so we'll start. So this is super indie inspiration, and it has kept my mind light over a very hard period of time, and for that I'm always going to be grateful for this series. It's was the first series I collected every issue in a run of it. About it's 180 issue, 190 issues, 180. Feel like 180 issues. I spent the most on a single comic in this run because of how much I love it. But this is Sergio Aragones's Gru the Wanderer. I did a quickie on issue number 1. If you folks want to check that out and the actual meat and potatoes of it. This is the re-release, so it's not the Pacific Comics run. It's not the first introduction to the character. This was a reintroduction with a bigger brand, Epic or Marvel, really. But when Marvel's like, we want to print other comics that aren't in the Marvel continuity, and Aragones got in there, and I'm blessed that he did. It's a fun, goofy kind of comic bit. He looks tough. It's got its killer corner box, which the previous did not have. We could talk about corner boxes as well, but um, it's simple. Iconic character on a single color background. It goes back closer to what we were talking about with children's books earlier. It's got that bit to it. And Gru was aimed at a younger audience. It is all ages because the humor's it's clever. It's simple and clever, so it's not highbrow like ha ha ha, you know these three things, so now this is funny kind of humor. It's just like that's funny. Um, Wordplay, all of that kind of stuff, and just the characterizations. But it's funny because it's a parody comic, a Conan the Barbarian, right? But it's not a direct parody. It's its own thing. It's just inspired by and such. But it's him looking badass, but with Sergio Aragones' art style, which makes it feel goofy. And it's him in the corner box looking badass, but still goofy, right? The stances are badass. He's fighting. He's a warrior. Um, it's one of the more complicated logos you'll find also for a long time. With the swords crossing, you can see Gru is big, but he wanted his name on it, which I think was wise. It's a very unique name, and it puts it helps build his personal brand, which at this point in time he was very much into because he would not give rights up to Gru. He knew it was a gold idea, and he's been doing it forever at this point. Um, but this is a simple one. It's an introduction to the character. It looks goofy, but he looks strong. At 75 cents, I would have picked this up, and right? Very, very simple. So what I wanted to talk about in this is I'm going to compare it to another thing, my favorite Gru the Wanderer cover from this run, and it made me very curious what Sergio could do with horror, right? I'm going to show you this. Now, if you are an arachnophobe, you might want to look away for a minute, but this is my favorite Gru the Wanderer cover. Now, it's going to be hard to kind of see in it. You can see the meat and potatoes of it, so I'll take it. This is issue 52, Gru the Wanderer. It's partway through an arc where he is working with this woman who I forgot what she is, what her name is, and all that. It's still got the Gru's goofiness, as you can see. It's got her who was the kind of sex appeal bit. It's got him looking scared of the giant spider, all that. But that detail in the spider, the webs all around all that, this cover stuck out to me out of the whole 180 issue run as just insanely cool. It's the coolest cover Aragones ever did, in my opinion, in this series of Gru the Wanderer. I'm not 100% familiar with everything he's done, but the bones everywhere, the hyper detail, it proved to me that he can do both. So again, super simple, big character close up. Focuses on naming him and kind of showing a little bit of his personality, with the art style being loose and goofy, big old nose, all that goofball stuff, but him still being tough. Whereas this is hyper detailed with bones and webs and goo and fangs and just super dynamic and high detail. He could do both, and both of them land incredibly. Um, for different goals, right? And that's the thing with covers is what's your goal for the issue? Uh, and I guess that's not exactly where we're going to leave Gru. I do want to talk about the other thing that he did, which I should have pulled some issues out, but I don't know the individual numbers, and this was kind of impromptu. I grabbed as many books as I could figure, but he did a cover tropes, and one of the tropes was Gru looking at a creature and having a thought bubble of it being food. And there's multiple issues with that where there's a pun, there's a joke on the cover. Where it was like a shark, there's one where Gru is swimming in the ocean, like maybe Castaway or whatever, and he's looking at a shark thinking of it as food, and the shark's looking at him thinking of him as food. There's another one where they're freezing on an island and he's looking at a penguin as food. There's a lot of fun stuff like that, and if you have a long running series and you're able to put reoccurring jokes on your covers, like that's incredible. I think that is so fun. Um, and the fact that they were able to, and that it went so long and was able to do all that, I think that is so cool. That's a thing I'd love. Like you had a previous cover where you did that, and then you see that again in a shop, and you're a Groove fan. You're like, oh, they did it again. It's the same thing, but it's goofy. Pick that up. Right? I again, what's your goal for the cover? What's your goal for the cover is what you always have to have in mind when you're composing the cover. And Aragones with Gru in particular, but I'm sure with other series, was very aware of that. One communicates the character and make sure you focus on it. Another communicates the horror and detail and the trouble to communicate that and get folks to pick it up based on the danger that the characters are in. I think those are two great ways to do it. Neither one is overshadowed, and both have very different goals, but are done very well, right? Um, both of them actually goals would be to pick up new readers and satisfy old readers, right? Gru the Wanderer #1 from Epic here. The goal was to pick up after the 8-issue Pacific Comics run because that wasn't that big of Pacific Comics, which was a small indie label. And now he's picked up by Marvel's imprint Epic, which was doing this. So he's going to hit a bigger audience. So he's reintroducing the character, but trying to keep the old fans. And I think that was perfect for that first issue. Whereas partway through there, he wanted to again show off some horror and such. Is my favorite Gru cover because of how detailed it is. And again, I wanted to see what he could do with horror. And so that's different goals. What is the purpose of your cover should always be hugely in mind. So the next bits I was going to talk about. So how do I want to do about this? We are going to talk about IronVerse Comics work. That's this stack right here. And we're going to talk about all of them and what they're about and why we chose the specific covers at the time we did, and the processes through it. We're going to talk about all that. But let's do some kind of neat other stuff that kind of wasn't covered. In fact, I should grab something else that's over here because we're going to talk about something that, cover design is important. Cover design is 100% important. But one factor that folks don't always consider, in fact, there's another thing I have to grab too. I was just over here too. I should have just grabbed it. that they don't always consider. So, what's the purpose of your cover? That was kind of what we were talking about with Gru. With Ghostwriter, we were talking about making that initial impact more than anything. With these, where I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can make that impact, and I think that were really, really well done. And they have to do with two things. So two of them are kind of related. Two of them, there's three books. Two of them, the idea I want to talk about is related. All three aren't related in the same way. That's the way I can put it. So we'll start with this. So, started reading comics. I love comics. I end up in a bookstore with my mom. She's just looking for some new books. It's a local bookstore. And I didn't expect it to carry any comics. But I'm looking and I'm looking. I have a little bit of extra money in my thing. And I find this. This is, again, what we were talking about with the children's book that I was talking about, Warren the 13th, or whatever it's called, and Gru the Wanderer issue 1 here. That simple cover, not over-designing a cover and still being able to make an impact. So what this cover did was get me to pick up the book in the bookstore and look in it. And that's all I needed to do to pick this book up. That's all. I wasn't aware of this very popular author, by the way, or this extremely popular series that he's created. And it's massive fucking series. I've read none of it outside of this, which is to my own detriment, I can guarantee it, because incredible creator. But this is Terry Pratchett's The Discworld graphic novels. Look at how simple that cover is. It's fucking black with just telling you what's on there, and then here's the Discworld. That's it. That's it. Super simple, but I was like, what? It looks like some kind of esoteric something. So I picked it up off the shelf. I opened it and saw the art. And that's all I needed to do, right? And I was like, wow, this looks fun. And then I found a panel that was funny. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. And then I bought it. This cover with having nothing but the name, what it is, and a picture of what it is, a very small one at that, got me to buy a full big graphic novel for like $20. Perfect. That perfectly executed cover, not over designed at all. Over designing covers is a bad idea. I didn't pick up any covers that are over designed, but you'll see what I mean. It's that simple design again that goes for children's books where it's iconic and sticks with you. That's what this did. This isn't a gorgeous cover by any means. It is a utilitarian cover that does its job extremely well and doesn't overshadow its contents. And when we get into variant covers, cough cough, and that'll be virgin covers as well. That one covers both of those, which is nice. Overshadowing the interior, you might get that sale, but you don't get a reader. And that's a massive problem that this did not do. This did the opposite, which is not a problem, is a great way to go if you can pull it off. And Discworld did that perfectly. So from that, simple, right? Now let's talk about this, which adds a different level to it, where it's a simple design, but the actual material and how it's assembled, its size, the quality, um, the logo work is just incredible. And this is going to be the only manga we talk about, I think, because manga usually does something like that. Like I bring up Shaman King up here, and it has covers very similar to this, where it's just black, and then there's a single icon, and then the logo of the name, and then what volume it is, which is what this did. Fist of the North Star, Volume 1. This hardcover, it's one of the best feeling sequential art collections I have. It feels great in the hand. It's light, but it's sturdy. It's funny because it's got bloodstains over it, and it's so sturdy it feels like you could hit somebody with this pretty good. But it's just Ken on the cover there, Kenshiro, and the icon, right? I knew what Fist of the North Star was. The fact that I was waiting for it to get reprinted because trying to get American copies of Fist of the North Star before they started these reprints was incredibly expensive. Was not very high print run, and you couldn't even get everything. And there was like colorized versions that were very, very expensive. And then the more manga ones were not very well available either. The black and white, right? Um, this again does something very simple. It does that children's book kind of bit. Character, background, simple, iconic logo, but they added levels to it. Besides it being hardcover and feeling great in the hand, the material they used on this is incredible. Uh, the back, we're not kind of, we don't need to talk about the back. We're talking about covers, but it's another really well done expression of kind of what I showed you with Terry Pratchett's bit, right? Um, Making something simple and iconic that people are just like, oh, what is that? And I think throwing the blood bits on the cover implies what this is. It's a very gory manga. And it's serious. Let me look at his face. Look at that face. He's very serious. He takes this very seriously. And he's got the bullet holes in his chest, right? And all of that. So I think this was a good way to get new readers. And again, it's not over designed. Um, the next thing we'll talk about, which I think is really cool, because we're talking about materials. I tried to bridge the Pratchett to this with the simple iconic design, which we also saw in Gru, um, to materials, which is this is made very, very well. It feels great in the hand. It's an element of the cover that maybe is not always focused on. Um, and then we're going to move on to something that's done in metallic, because I think that was really cool. This is Black Hops. What is it? Volume 3. You see how it's sheeny. Um, Pretty character design, all that. I think the metal was a great way to do it. They did not follow up and keep doing it in metal like this, which I get 100%. They actually went into this beautiful hardcover presentation and way of doing things. But again, it's this material, right? The image is cool, right? Pretty lady, cute animals. Um, but doing it in metal makes it stick out a little bit more, right? And we used to see a lot of these material attempts, like in the late 80s and 90s. And I don't think like we'd get Glow in the Dark. There's a really bad Ghostwriter cover like that. We'd get one. We still get like black and white variant covers. We get things like that, right? Uh, it can work. It can work. Again, with Fist of the North Star, it's the simple iconic design on top of that. This is a bit more busy, but it communicates what it needs to. But this is volume 3. Would you pick this up separate from the other volumes? I don't know. I don't know. But I jumped onto Black Hops, I believe, on this, and then went back and bought the other two because it was a metal cover and I wanted to see how it looked in person. But that was me personally as a comic creator being interested in how that worked because I very much would love to do something like this with Jack Irons because it's thematically applicable. Um, and I think it's a little less thematically applicable to Black Ops. But it's an interesting way to try and get eyes, right? And I think that's part of what the cover's supposed to do. Again, new readers versus old readers. This one got me as a new reader because as a creator I was interested. I don't know as just a reader if this would pick it up. I got this and then I bought the other two volumes, read through the story, and then it got me. 100% got me. But when I first picked this up, it was because I was curious on how the metallic cover would manifest, and I'm super stoked to have it. But material of the cover is something I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about hardcover, softcover, floppy, all of that. Floppy covers, again, you're focused more on the design. That's just how it goes. All right. So we'll talk about this, and then we're going to do a deep dive on our own work. So I can kind of talk about how that's evolved. And in fact, we'll have to show a digital non-print because we had a cover before these printed covers. But let's talk about this, and the reason why I even keep the card up here is to remember what it's called. So there's a card in front. So let me pull that out. Let me pull that on out because it doesn't need to be in here. But this covers both Virgin covers, variant covers, and guest star covers. Okay, so this is by the wonderful Luigi Turrell. Right, so that's why I picked it up. It guest stars Sailor Rogowski on the cover there, which is the guest star bit. Um, the reason why I picked it up is both that artist and the guest appearance on the cover. I had no interest in Niobe otherwise. I'm not into the sexy bad girl comics. And the creator has not hooked me. Various reasons, but I don't need to get into that. In fact, I covered this work on the channel in a quickie. This particular artist, this particular issue. So if you want my thoughts on the actual work, please go in and do that. But we're going to talk about a couple problems that I have. This is preferences. Now, some people, I know it works, right, for sales. But my problems. So Virgin covers I don't have much of a problem with, particularly if they're being directly sold from the creator to the um, the audience, right? Because they know what they're getting. They're involved in this cycle, all of that. So not so much a problem with the Virgin here. I had more of a I've grown into having more of an issue with the point that it's got a guest artist and a guest star that have nothing to do with the interior. I have problems with that. I have massive problems when the cover is deceptive. I didn't expect either of that with this. So this particular expression of it, I knew what I was getting into. No question. But as an example, somebody who saw this on the shelf, which you will not, again, but you do see people putting out books like this. Now, you wouldn't see this on a shelf for multiple reasons. Virgin covers are hard to put out on any shelf unless the IP is very, very well known. You don't really see them on shelves because you don't know what you're getting. Period. There's nothing on here, right? You may recognize the character. Um, the other bit that I have with variant covers, in particular, is the fact that the artist is quite often different. So and if the artist is better on the cover than the interior, like you want them to be similar, in my opinion. Again, it's a deceptive sales practice. Now, if this was again, this one I knew what I was getting into, so don't put it on Niobe here. It's nothing to do with that. I knew what I was getting into here. There was no question there. I bought this one in particular for the cover, right? And that's a thing that can happen. But in more mainstream books and things that are put out on shelves where you'll get like an Alex Ross cover and then the interior is Marvel comic artist X that's done like 50 books and you can't recognize them, can't differentiate them from Marvel comic artist Y, right? Very similar guys, and the quality isn't close to Alex Ross, right? Um, then I have a problem. Very much have a problem. It's a deceptive sales practice. It's going on the shelf, and you see this awesome thing, and maybe you don't look into it. You should look on the interiors of any comic book before you buy it, if you can. Um, but that that bugs me. You should have an interior artist who is competent at doing the exterior as well. And we're going to get into that in here. This book, for instance, again, if you had picked it up and looked on the interior and then looked on the outside, the art styles are very different. The content has nothing to do with this cover except for the main character here, Niobe, that kind of thing. Uh, Done in a mainstream book, that would be very problematic, in my opinion. It would be very deceptive and rude to your readers. But done in this case, again, I knew what I was getting into. It was fine in this case. It was handled correctly, comparatively. So let's get into Jack's stuff, and we'll talk about that progression. And I hope folks will get something out of that. So I need to bring up an image, so you're going to have to give me a second to find it. Um, Deep in the IronVerse archives here, uh, our first cover for the black and white web version of Jack Irons, The Steel Cowboy, which I still love the original idea, the original covers idea. I think it's really cool. And issue number one even homages it, or the actual printed cover homages it, which I'm super stoked. I think we respect our work as much as it needs to be respected, which has been again my problem with variant covers and such. Boom. So there's that. So what I wanted to communicate with issue number one, and what ended up working, is Jack's a man out of time. He's stuck in one place. So we have this futuristic holographic kind of wanted poster on one half, and then we have an old hand drawn wanted poster on the left. That was the idea. I think it communicates it well. I think it did its job throughout the original marketing run of Jack trying to get to issue number two, where I was trying to show anything I had. I had very little material, right? And it was all black and white, and it was poorly lettered by me, um, and such. But I think the cover nailed the communication that we wanted to. Science fiction and Old West coming together in a single character, this immortal. I think it did it perfectly. Um, a cover should communicate the interior of a comic, in my opinion. It should communicate the journey you're going to take somebody. It's the handshake. It's the first meeting with this person for the story that you're going to share with them. I think it should have a certain amount of respect for itself and a certain amount of respect for the reader, for the potential reader. I think if you can communicate those bits, then your cover has succeeded, in my opinion. Now, again, there's a lot of different ways, and I love art and comics so much because there's a billion ways to do things. But in my opinion, if you respect your interior and your story, and you respect the reader, then and it can be communicated in the cover, then that cover succeeded. So there's that, right? So we go through that, we market this, we get enough to get to issue number two, we get enough to get interest from a colorist, we get enough to get relettered, we get enough to get a publisher. All kinds of crazy stuff happens, not based on just on this cover, but on the interior story and everything we were marketing, and of course my ability to network apparently. So we did that, right? And then we're like, well, that cover isn't actually the full title of the book. It's Jack Irons the Steel Cowboy because Jack Irons is a famous drummer, and we don't want to have that confusion there. For one, I chose Jack Irons in particular as a name because Jack is one of the most iconic folklore English names. Irons for both guns and what do you call those? It's called handcuffs, but it's more that old school. You call them irons, clad in irons. Bit there, and to communicate metal. There's a lot that irons, a lot of weight that last name conveys. Uh, But then throwing in a steel cowboy, it finishes that. He's a heavy metal cowboy. He's a steel cowboy. It works, right? So that cover could not see print. It wasn't good enough. Period. Now the cover I'm going to show you has actually been redone with a new logo and a bit more, I guess the whole term, a new trade dress. But I don't have a copy of it because my publisher has not sent me a copy of it. But nonetheless, this is what we ended up that went off to patrons with the successful funding of issue number 2. So let me, because it'll be so tiny over there, it'll be kind of tiny over here too. Be great to expand this, but I don't know. I like the guys on the left and right. The focus shouldn't just be me. So this is the cover that we ended up with later. New logo design, which was a bit busy. I will admit, we ran a logo contest, in fact, to get to it. Um, oh, you bored, kiddo? Is that why you're bugging me? No, you're comfy. You're not being bothered. You just want attention. Um, yes, you just want attention. Uh, so we did a lot of things with this. And of course, there's the new logo, trade dress. It actually communicates Steel Cowboy. Um, Maxi, it was about 5 years between that one I just showed you and this cover. It was a long time. This project's been at it for, if you count when I started, about 16 years. Um, and this was about 5 of those years in between. 3, 4 years, 4 years of it. About 3 years, about between 3 and 4 years, between issue 1 web copy and issue 1 physical delivered to everybody copy. So yeah, 3 to 4 years if I go that way. Ran a logo contest. We got like 50 entries or something, which was great. Haven't been able to replicate the success in a contest since that logo contest. Got all kinds of cool entries. But found it. I found kind of the font I liked and stuff. I didn't really like it 100%, so then I kind of gave the ideas of what I wanted. My goal was to find somebody I wanted to work with, not 100% find a design I wanted through that logo contest. That's usually what I do when I'm reaching out. I'm not so much looking for magic out the gate. I'm looking for somebody I can work with that has a grasp of what I'm trying to do and again that I can work with, that we can figure out and come out with something probably better than I have in mind. Um, and I think we were able to communicate that in this. Now, it was a little bit busy for a lot of folks, and I get it. We've got a wood pattern in the logo. We've got a metal pattern in the logo. We've got Jack and his horse. God, is there a way to center that better? There we go. We've got Jack and his horses there with the loop, right? It works. It's cool, but it's a very busy logo. So we ended up simplifying that for issue number 2 significantly. I wanted to use the same logo, but it just didn't look good. As our then graphic designer for it was a logo designer mainly. He didn't do much the graphic design except on the cover. Um, as he communicated, it was just too busy. It didn't look good on the next cover. But on this, it worked, right? There was space left for it. It took the space. We got our issue 1 there. We've got Jack reintroduced to the reader again, kind of how again, Gru the Wanderer and others have done, where it's just kind of just the character, and then it shows a lot of attitude. It's got the ATF on there, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. It's got that he's just like nonchalant next to his wanted poster. It's all good. The interior of the bar is on fire. It communicates a scene within the book, the end scene. So we introduce you to the end of the story that's presented in issue 1 on the cover. That's always been something we wanted to do is communicate an extra scene that's not communicated in the story, but is definitely applicable to the story and helps you give the flavor of the story. And I think this cover accomplishes that beautifully. And the new cover with our new graphic designer simplifies the logo and it makes the issue number stick out. I'll show you the variant of this when we get to the variants, but we're doing the original covers first. So that's the original printed cover that went out to backers. There was one printing. I think there's only 200 copies or so of this out there. Then we got to issue number 2. And like I said, we tried to redo that logo as close to possible with the jack and the horses and the extra fire and texture and all that. It didn't work. It didn't work. So he showed me this. It was a bit more movie postery for the logo. Again, the cover, we wanted to communicate what's going on, and this one is introduction to our world building and a little bit of growth of Jack and kind of showing that. Now, there were years between these two covers, so Jack's design changed a little bit as well. But this communicates the post-apocalyptic world. It communicates what we're introducing you to, and it has this movie poster feel, which is exactly what we wanted out of this issue. Um, we had a new colorist during it as well, who was able to pick up from our previous colorist in issue number one's work. 100% able to. It's beautiful work. And we've worked with him since on issue number three as well, which does not have a variant cover, and we'll get into that. But we simplified it and got this out. I love it. This logo has also been reworked, and how we number our issues have been reworked, and how we actually credit folks as well. We were doing credits in the lower left-hand corner, which works great. I think it looks good. But you'll see on our variant covers and then issue number three how we reworked it and how I think it is. It communicates all the information a little bit more concisely and better. I think it just does. Doggo knocked over the mouse. Yeah, I know you're bored. I know. So here we go on this, and then I think this is the last bit of covering covers for now. If you have any questions down the line, if anybody actually watches this later, please comments below. Let me know. Comment your favorite covers. Link them if you will, because I'd love to see them. I'm always learning. Being at this, I've only been at this in any sort of successful bit, where there's exposure and interaction and real readership for 3 or 4 years. So it's not something I am a master of or I understand everything. So please educate me. That's how I get better. So with those, then we got, oh God, is that the bag? That's the bag. Ugly. Okay, so you might see this ugly stripe on the cover there that goes over the name. Ugh. I don't like these bags. They're cheap bags. I got other better bags. I just should have opened them, but I was like, oh, they're not open yet, and I have this other bag open, so I should just put it in this. And bad choice. But anywho, boom. Redone variant of issue number one. So that's kind of compare and contrast, right? Oh, come on, it's so dark. This camera's not great. You get an idea. You get an idea. So, our original it was more simple, that Gru the Wanderer kind of feel to it. This has that, but it also communicates a looming threat. It communicates the science fiction angle of the story more. Jack's armor was the main thing that communicated the science fiction angle in this cover, on this cover, right? Um, on this, again, with Jack's design finally kind of coming full circle. Issue number one's original printed cover there was kind of a in between um, issue one's original artwork, which again there were years between Maxie, and Maxie is still a young man. Between the original issue number one art and the issue number two art, where Jack gets a relatively large redesign. So he tried to communicate that in the cover. He tried to go back to the roots that are in issue number one as much as he could while communicating that bridge. This we are fully entrenched in his redesign, which I think is good. That's where we're going, and it communicates the best. I think the coloring work is incredible by Steve Cannon. It communicates everything we need. Most of the story of issue number one is Jack talking at the bar anyway, so that's what's going on there. The main conflict in the issue is with this robot. Communicates everything it needs to. That there's this looming science fiction threat over this guy who's been drinking a lot, smoking a lot, and is ready to pay his bill and deal with this fucker. And as you can see, redesigned logo is closer to what we did with issue number two's original first printing. Something simple. Took away Jack and the horse and all that extra stuff that didn't really need to be there. We placed the issue number one in a box at the bottom right there, which communicates that this is issue number one. You'll see that on issue number two and issue number three. It's our graphic design is what we're going to do as long as we're running it. It is clear, concise, and beautiful, and I think it communicates it better. And allows people to know kind of what's going on, right? Instead of a corner box or anything else. The only thing that we will add sooner or later is an IronVerse Comics logo somewhere. We're just not there yet. Uh, this was our first variant cover, and you'll notice something else about this. Same artist. Um, the difference between this and this is that, again, we changed colorists. So the interior colorist is different than the exterior colorist, which when we get to issue number two's variant cover is similar, but you don't really notice it because we try to keep the communication concise and clear. Um, we don't want to confuse people. I've been asked by many artists who I respect and love and want to work with to do variant covers. Can I do a variant cover for Jack? No. Line artist wise, I have to say no because I don't like this kind of deal where you get something very different on the cover than the interior. My goal is to always have these eventually in shops and places where people can just pick them up. And I don't want them to be deceived by the cover and then have them lose taste because the interior art is very different than the exterior. And our interior art is wonderful, so there's no reason to cut Maxi out of the cover art credit. It just makes no sense to me as part of our process. Now, a lot of other companies and stuff, I get it. Whatever. You have a stable of like 150 artists. They're all hungry. They all want work, and some of them have bigger names than others, and some you can pay much lower on the interior than the cover artist. There's a lot of politics and networking and dynamics involved in larger companies and larger projects. But with us, the only thing I'm ever really willing to give leeway on is the colorist, and even then, Maxi tends to work with them very close, so it's still very much an expression of what he expects, right? And moving on to that, then we'll move on to issue two, and it's variant cover. So if you remember, this is issue number two's original print cover, which has also gotten a rework on our digital copies and has been reprinted through Wicked Publishing. You can get this cover with the redone logo. That's the cleaner look. It's this trade dress, except on this cover through Wicked Publishing, and the same thing where it's that trade dress style on this cover with a big issue 2 down there. Our redone, remastered kind of version of the covers. I really like them. But you see that cover? This was our issue number 2 variant cover, which communicates, again, an extra scene within issue number 2. That's always my hope, is that it communicates a scene that maybe is not in the book, but is in the book, right? It's implied. It's part of, you're moving from panel to panel. You fill in the motions, right? And that's what I always want our covers to communicate, and that's what Maxi's been able to deliver on, and our wonderful colorists. This one, we have a variant cover by Raven Monroe, a variant cover color, and you can't really tell that it's not, for instance, what Steve Cannon's work looks like or what Matthias Laborde's work looks like. It's very much an IronVerse Comics cover. It's a little softer, but that's about it. It still came out beautifully. It has the reworked logo. It communicates another scene. Maybe it doesn't communicate the story within as strongly as this cover does. I think this cover communicates it a little bit better, but it did what I would want a variant cover to do, which is communicate another scene within the book and still not be deceptive. And I think it does that beautifully. I think it looks simple. This is a really cool comic cover. I haven't looked at it in a little while. I think it came out great. I think her coloring work came out beautifully, actually. But that's kind of what we do. We don't. Again, my issue with variant covers is deception. If you can somehow avoid that deception, then I'm usually fine with variant covers, and that's what we're doing. I don't know if we're going to do many other variant covers. Technically, again, we have redone 1 and 2 each. There are 3 versions of the cover of each. There's the original crowdfunding print. There's the new print through Wicked, and there's these variant prints. But that's how it goes as we evolve and learn and found our groove. Now, issue number 3 does not have a variant cover, but we have stuck with the original idea. The trade dress is consistent and strong, and that's all we really wanted out of it. I love this cover, the coloring work, everything about it. I think it's an incredible cover. I would totally snag it at a comic shop if I saw it. So that's why we are working hard to get into any comic shops this year. We'll see what can be done. But that's kind of our work. That's kind of what we've tried to do, try to communicate it. I didn't cover wraparound covers. Um, if that's what you're into, we'll talk about wraparound covers. I couldn't find one within easily accessible indie stuff, which is what I tried to kind of focus on. But they're cool, but how often do you open a book all the way this way to look at it when you're going to read your book? I'm a reader, not a collector, so I think wraparounds, the extra value is you're getting twice as much artwork from somebody, right? And so if that's somebody you love their work, right? You just love their work, then yeah, you're probably going to prefer a wraparound to just a front, just because it's more of their work. But I have no interest. What we did, and I guess this is part of the cover, is the back cover, right? That's the other thing that we redesigned. So I guess I can talk about that. So we ended up, and these are the back covers that are also used in the reprints. Something simple, a scene from the book, white synopsis, and hopefully a selling point, right? So you pick it up, you read the back, boom, you got something. Kind of like what you do with any kind of book. What we did originally was more just let's get it out kind of stuff. Again, we didn't have a full-on graphic designer at that point. We had somebody who did it. So we reprinted the original cover, kind of at least a good chunk of it, the important part of it, and then it has all the legal information, some ads for Wicked Publishing, and all that stuff. Um, the ISBN, their site, all that important stuff, the copyright info. It was just get it out. Very indie back cover, exceedingly indie back cover. This is we're learning what we need to do back cover. Whereas all that information is now covered on the credit page, which is more what regular publishers do, and it then allows these books to look really clean. You flip it over and then you get this white, and you get your synopsis if you want to be interested in it, and you get a scene from the book, and you get our social media stuff, you get our publisher stuff. This issue in particular doesn't have an ISBN, but that's where it would be if it had it. All of that fun stuff. But you know, that's kind of covers most of what I wanted to. Covers. So if you have any questions, anything you want to discuss, please let me know in the comments below. I'm sure this stream's gone on way longer than I intended it to, but there was a lot to hit. Let me see if I can summarize it here. So we started here, which is, again, I wanted to start where I started. This cover made the impact and turned me into a comic book reader. So that's the X factor is will a cover and its design hit the reader at a time that will resonate with them? This one certainly did for me, like incredibly, and it will stick with me for the rest of my life. It will never exit my brain. Then we talked about technically we first talked about, and this will cover it as well, and so will this. A lot of covers are simple, and their goal is simply to communicate attitude, mood, or honestly, why you should buy this book. That's what this is. So he looks goofy, but he looks strong. That's why you should buy this book. This one was super simple, super crazy simple, and it got young me to open it, and that was the important thing. So it was so simple. All it had was what's going on with this turtle. Never heard of Terry Pratchett. Never, was trying to sell off the Terry Pratchett name, right? No idea. It's a Discworld. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, what's going on with this? And then I opened it and I looked at the art and it was wonderful. And I saw some of the humor and I bought it. Its job was to get you to open it. That was this cover's bit, right? So it took the children's books idea, which is to be iconic and colorful and have a beautiful character design that a kid will really latch onto and always be able to recognize, right, and become an icon. I want to hear read 50 times, 100 times, right? It took that, but then it instead added this level of intrigue. Like now I gotta see what's in there, and it got me to buy it. This and I did talk a little bit about Gru the Wanderer overall because he has another thing which he's incredible at, which is cover tropes, where he'll repeat jokes. Well, what do you call that? In stand-up, you call it a recurring joke, something like that. and he was able to do that with comic covers, and I think that's incredible. But this was the cover of Gru the Wanderer that stuck out with me the most because it was the most off-brand yet communicated an artistic ability that just blew me the fuck away. It really showed his talent for horror when it's this goofy thing. And if I saw this on the shelf and I was a Gru the Wanderer reader, right? Even if I had dropped off for a while, I'd be like, "Ooh, what the hell? That's cool," and I would have picked it up. It's high detail. It's all this horror. It still has the goofballness. I mean, look at how goofily, sexily drawn she is. How freaked out Gru is and goofy he looks. And look at Roberto, just bailing because who wouldn't run from that giant horror, which was very off-brand for the book, and I think that was incredible. It really allowed him to contrast comedy and horror, which I think is a great idea and would have got me to pick this up off the shelf. Instead, as I'm looking through the entire run, it sticks out the most to me because it's the most daring cover he produced, in my opinion. It was the most like off-brand, but still perfectly nails what the issue is trying to communicate. Neither of these, as well, deviate from what you're going to find in the book. And that's really important to me. We talked quite a bit about deception. I don't like covers that are deceptive. If there's like a subversion, right? Like you have a character killing another character on a cover or something, and then you have that big "what will happen to" or "is this the death of" on the cover, like I get it. I totally get it, and that could work, right? As long as you don't imply that it's fully dead, like the guy's impaled and bleeding and he's fucking dead on the cover, but in the interior he doesn't die. That's deceptive as well. Just as deceptive as having a variant artist, in fact. I don't like that. I don't like bait and switches. Bait, totally cool. Switch, not so much. Fist of the North Star, again, it's that children's book bit, but taken. Simple, iconic character, simple, iconic logo, well made. You can feel it when you pick it up. That's part of it. And this was talking about materials, trying to keep it solid and good and something that you feel like you want to own. Important. Um, Talked about this, something different, right? There's a lot of these, and during the 90s, again, late 80s, late 90s, there are a bunch of different versions of this metal cover, or glow in the dark covers, or fold out covers, or inset cutout covers. Um, those were all bits because the collector market was exploding, and if you did this one time, then you can maybe sell it to folks because they think it'll be valuable later. Eh, uh, but again, in this case, we talked about it a little bit. I do love the cover design. It's not too busy. It communicates fine. But some personality of the book. It gets you looking at the characters. This is a volume 3 of an indie book, so picking it just up off of the cover would be interesting, which is what I did. But it got me to go back and buy the other stories so I could read them because the story was actually good. But this is one of those cases where that weird kind of cover thing got me to buy it. But I bought it again more as a creator, interested in what that looks like and what that feels like more than the actual book. But then once I read the book, it was great, and Iconic Comics had me hooked on basically everything they put out. Um, and then we talked about virgin covers, which I'm fine with, but I think do a disservice to the work if it's placed on a shelf. So virgin covers make more sense being directly sold to specific collectors and customers than like through the average readership. Like it's not, I don't think virgin covers are for readers; they are for collectors. Um, this one worked. It got me to buy it, and since I'm more of a reader than a collector, I did read it, and if I had bought this off of the character and I had thought in any way that this character was involved, I would have felt terrible. But that was not what I went in. Again, I bought it directly from the creator through a crowdfunding site and I knew what was going on with it. But again, had I got this off the shelf or something, the exterior art here is a variant art and it's a virgin cover and it does not communicate anything within the story. It's just a cover. It's just a cool pinup, right? That's what we do at IronVerse Comics is we do pinups with guest artists because those are standalone. They don't affect our storyline. They don't deceive the reader. They are just something extra and cool to support our community and to grow our community and to support artists that we love. That's what I think uh, variant covers at their best can do, but I don't think that's often what variant covers do. I think variant covers are often a bait and switch. And we talked a little bit about wraparound there at the end, where I was just like, oh, if you want more art from the guy, I'm sure you're gonna buy it. But otherwise, for me, I don't see much of a point because you don't see half of the artwork half of the time, right? Um, and I think back cover real estate could be better used. But it really depends. It really depends on who you are and what you're trying to do with your work, right? I think that communicates everything, folks. I think that covers. Um, as always, let me know where I'm wrong. I'm sure I'm wrong about a lot of things. Let me know your thoughts on what a cover should be. That one I'm really interested in is what a cover should be because I told you a lot about what I think a cover should be. But what do you think a cover should be? What do you think a good variant cover is? What's your favorite variant cover and why? Any of that information, if you're watching this later and you got this far through, thank you so much for all of that. It's always me rambling. The best streams, I think, with the most coherent information are Caffeine Run, so it might be a little chaotic, but the information's communicated instead of sometimes when I'm tired and I just can't get it through. So I hope that worked. Um, let me know what you want from IronVerse Comics covers. Are we succeeding in our job? I believe we are, but I could be wrong. In fact, I've often been wrong. So please communicate to me what you think of our own work and our evolution if you followed us. I think that would be exceedingly helpful. And as always, thank you. Thank you from this kid here who's sleeping now. Huh. Yeah, he looks away. Don't bring me into this. Yeah, you want me to bring you into this? Yeah, goofball. Anywho, I'll catch you folks later on that Rusty Ironverse Comics trail. Hopefully, I'll see you there for issue number 4. I am so excited. It should be, as each issue has been, our best work ever, and I am so excited to share it with you. And catch you later, folks. Adios, all of that good stuff. Take care.